Hi guys, welcome to lesson 3. This is our last lesson of the week, and we're going to talk about modern problems. So this is how Indigenous people are dealing with just being in Australia at the moment, what it means to be Indigenous here as a First Nations person, and how is that explored in the Boy from the Mish. So a lot of our ideas with Ali Cobby Eckermann dealt with how the past is affecting her now, so the stolen generation and all that kind of stuff that happened in the 40s, 50s, 60s. I know the last case was in around the 60s. Okay, so that's like a past sort of impact, and now we're talking about modern impacts. And as the author gave in his introduction, okay, we do talk about racism and violence and racial bias. So let's just have a look. There are quite a few sections we're going to read that sort of bounces around throughout the book. Okay, so I'm going to need you to focus a little bit on just what the page numbers are, and follow along in your edition, or you can just listen to me talk, whatever you're doing. Will be helpful. And as always, this is the cover of the book, so you know that we're talking about the Boy from the Mish. I think there's 3 sections. Yep, 3 separate sections we're going to talk about before we do a quick analysis. So, and also think about this is chapter 1. This is how we're introduced to the book and to the world that Jackson lives in. There is a little bit of swearing in it, which is why it's blacked or whited out here. Um, that happens. I'm sure you guys can fill in the blank yourselves. But let's get started. So, chapter 1, page 1. The white boys stare at us from the pub. It's Ethan and his mates. They sit on stools behind the railing of the packed pub and sip their beers from schooner glasses, keeping their eyes on us. Next to me, Kalen stares back at them from behind the steering wheel, his mouth tucked in one corner and his eyebrows scrunched, while Yanni lights a cigarette in the back seat. "What are you looking at?" Yanni shouts. They just stare. Then they laugh. And I just look at my lap because there's a cop car ahead of us, stopping on the other side of this red light. I know they're watching us, the ute with all the black faces inside. My throat is drying, but I don't want to drink from my bottle of Coke, in case the coppers think it's a beer and pull us over. The white boys go back to their drinks and banter as the light turns green and Kalen eases off the brakes. I'd expect him to put his foot to the floor and spin the tires, but he must have spotted the coppers too. They drive steadily past them, blasting our music, and we start up the mountain out of town. In the side view mirror, I see the police car slow down and then pull over to the side of the road. They spin around and now they're coming speeding up behind us. It's Constable Rogers. I'd recognise those big ears of his anyway. "No sudden movement, lads," Kalen jokes as he watches the rearview mirror. Yanni ashes his cigarette on the interior armrest of the door. The copper's lights come on and spray red and blue in the car. Kalen flips on his blinker with a sigh and pulls over. My heart is pounding. The doors to the police car open as Kalen turns off the engine. Constable Rogers comes to Kalen's window with his breathalyzer in hand. He peeks inside with his clean blue uniform over his body and his hat in his head, on his head. "Kalen, Jackson, and Yanni," he says with such dissatisfaction. "What are you boys doing? Mouthing off at the fellas at the pub?" "Nah," Kalen said. "Just saying hello." "Is that right?" Constable Rogers says, his voice dropping an octave. "Seems a bit like yous were trying to start trouble." "Nope, no trouble," Kalen replies. The other copper approaches my side of the ute, red face, walking slow, eyes searching through the open windows until he stops by me, staring me down. Constable Rogers holds up his breathalyzer to Kalen. Kalen breathes into it from before the breathalyzer beeps. "Looks like you're all good." I feel such a relief come over my body, even though I know Kalen hasn't been drinking. "Have a safe drive, boys." The coppers walk back to their car. Kalen starts the ute, and we're back on the road. Alright, so this is how we're introduced to the world of Jackson and his friends. Okay, he's having a bit of a shouting match almost with these bullies or these guys in the pub. Um, in this instance, you can see that Yanni starts it. Yanni is one of Jackson's mates. He's like, "What are you looking at?" And then the boys sort of do some back and forth, and the cops pull them over. So one of the things you might have noticed is that this kind of, what would you say? This is kind of like how we see some videos in America, especially around the Black Lives Matter movement, about people being pulled over and being harassed by police for doing nothing wrong, and instantly because of the color of their skin. Now, the Black Lives Matter movement in America has started a Black Lives Matter movement here in Australia about how Indigenous people are treated by the police and by the society in general. And that's why you feel this kind of common idea about black people, or in this case, Indigenous people, coming up against the police. And it's clearly police that they have a lot of interactions with, because he calls them by name, Kaylin, Jackson, and Yanni. So that's our first bit of information. Our second one is here. It's a little bit shorter, but we're going on 142 to 143 in our little books. So during the course of the story, uh, Jackson and his friends have gone to a New Year's Eve party at a park. It kind of reminds me of how, you know, how Koshigaya Park at Campbelltown does this whole thing for New Year's, or Fisher's Ghost over near Bradbury Pool. It gives me that kind of vibe. Anyway, I'm just going to read this section here. So this is about halfway through the book, a little bit over halfway. I almost want to force myself to dance with them all, but then out of the corner of my eye, I see Ethan and his mate strutting towards me. Oi, Abbo! I hear. There it is, Abbo. Just like that, I'm no longer a person, but a thing. I'm a shallow shell, emptied of blood and organs. I sink into the earth and the whole world folds over and I'm covered in it all. I'm lower than dirt. I'm not human. I'm nothing but an Abbo. The blank did you just call me? I say. My whole body becomes hot. My fists clench and fire roars inside me. The fire takes over and I'm no longer in control about what I'm about to do. Chapter 13. I stomp my way over to Ethan and land a punch on his chin. He grabs my collar and my shirt rips as he punches me back. I take some hits to the face as his mates join in and I'm swung around. Owen's face appears in the blur. His punches land on the back of Ethan's head and Ethan releases me. I go for the bastard again, punch him in his chest. One of his mates tackles me to the ground. The grass burns my face when I land. I see Owen fighting the other one, and then Ethan kicks me in the ribs, and his friend lifts me to my feet. Kaylin and Yanni and Thomas come from nowhere. Ethan's goes for him. He punches Yanni in the mouth, then Kaylin hits him in the face. Thomas punches the guy holding me, and I wriggle out of his grip and punch him in the face. While marking his face, Thomas punches his stomach, and the white boy goes down. Thomas kicks him in once in the face, and he rolls away through the screams and cheers I hadn't heard till now. Oi! I hear. It's Constable Rogers and his partner racing for us. So once again, we're having an altercation between Ethan and his crew and Jackson and his crew, and I think this little paragraph here, when he gets called that name, that derogatory name, I'm not going to say it again, there's no need to. When he gets called that name and he's like, I'm no longer a person, I'm a thing. I love how the author really goes into detail here, like a hollow shell emptied with blood and organs. I sink into the earth and the whole world folds over and I'm covered in it all. I'm lower than dirt. I'm not human. I'm nothing but a... and you can see how that word causes him to then have a fight, because he's sick of it. It's worse than calling him names. It's something that's tied to his race. It has a lot of history here in Australia. It's as bad as saying the N-word in America. So just think about that. Now, last little bit of reading here is from page 145. Okay, so Jackson's been picked up by the police. That section is in the excerpts if you want to have a read, but unfortunately we don't have time this week with online learning to do everything I wanted to do with this book. But if you wanted to read how he got arrested, that's in there. So he gets arrested and he's taken to the cells and he sits there for a while with his mum. His mum meets him there and they just sort of sit in silence for a bit until the Constable Rogers comes back up. So that's where we're up to in the book. This is near the end. All right. I crinkle my toes and a lump comes to my throat. My whole body is shaking. I look up to her and I can feel the tears readying themselves at the gates when my eyes meet hers. She leans forward and edges her face closer to the plastic between us. And suddenly I feel at ease. For the first time in what feels like forever. Maybe it won't be so bad if I got with Thomas. Maybe it'll be okay. A few minutes later, Constable Rogers steps into the holding room. He unlocks my door again, brings me out of the cell, and stands me against the wall. I look up to the camera and the officer from the desk takes a few photos of me. Now if I become famous for some reason, the magazines can unearth my mugshot right at the height of my career. And for a moment, it'll be embarrassing, but then everyone will say I looked my best at 17. The cops take me and Mum into another room, where my fingers are dipped in ink and pressed against a sheet of paper. Then Constable Rogers takes us to yet another small room, this one with a table and chairs. We sit down and another copper comes in, wearing just a normal shirt and pants. She introduces herself as Detective Beasley. Do you know why you're under arrest, Jackson? She asks. Her voice is quiet and calm, and she enunciates her words carefully. I don't know why, but I still shake my head. Sorry, I do know why, but I still shake my head. You've been charged with aggravated assault. You're alleged to be attacked the victim in a football field before midnight tonight. Do you know what I'm referring to? That Ethan rat. Yeah, I say. Were you under the influence of any drugs or alcohol when this happened? Not really. I had a couple of drinks, but I wasn't drunk. We escorted back to the holding room. Mum takes her place in the chair while I sit back inside the cell. 4 a.m. comes and we're both struggling to stay awake. With each passing second, my fears being transported to juvie grow stronger. He called me an abo, by the way. I say. My mum turns to me. The boy who hit you? I nod. She just smiles. Next time, you have to walk away. All right? Don't give him any excuse to lock you up. So again, we can see how Jackson is going through this system, that it's Constable Rogers who's taking the lead. And he is only 17, as we got here. He is underage drinking, which is something that's commonplace where he lives, in the Mish. But the part I want you guys to think about is this part here where he's like, he called me, by the way. And she's like, the boy that hit you. And I'm like, yeah. It's like, don't hit him. You've got to walk away. You don't want to give him an excuse. Because even though we know as readers that Ethan's the one that started this, when it comes to the police, they don't care. Ethan's the one that filed a report. He's not going to admit that he called this boy a name before that he got punched in the face. He's going to say, I was just innocently walking through the grounds, Constable Rogers, and he just came up and hit me for no reason. Okay, it's not a light sentence either. It's aggravated assault. That's actually quite serious. Oh, sorry, my throat's getting dry. So in all three sections of this, we can see how he's being profiled by the police, how Jackson has a relationship with the police that isn't a good one. Here we can see how he's not getting along with the white kids in his community, at least the group that we know, with Ethan and his mates. And the last one here is when his mum says, you shouldn't have hit him because now you're in trouble. If he hadn't have hit him, if he had just walked away, he couldn't have gotten in trouble. And that's something that he has to accept as an Indigenous person, that people are going to say stuff to you and you're just going to have to walk away, because if you get involved, if you try to stand up for yourself, no one's going to care. You're the one that's going to get in trouble because you're the one with black skin. So let's have a look at modern Indigenous conflict. So in the excerpts, we see 3 separate occasions where Jackson has conflict with the people who live in his town. The main antagonist is Ethan, a local boy who has a long history of bullying Jackson and his friends. And secondly, we see how the local law enforcement deal with violent situation at the fairground between Ethan's group and Jackson's group. Ali Cobby Eckerman also expressed how she felt targeted by police when she was younger, and that she would often be the focus of investigation over other people. One of the videos we watched about Ali Cobby Eckerman, she explicitly says that, you had to watch out when the police pulled you over. It's the exact same feeling that we get from all of these videos from America about Black Lives Matter, about people being targeted because of the color of their skin. Ali Cobby Eckerman says the same thing happens here. All through her life, she felt like she was targeted by police. And in these examples from the Boy From the Mish, Jackson shows how those things happen. Racial profiling is something that is shared by Indigenous Australians across multiple generations. Now, that is the big takeaway from this week's lesson, is that racial profiling is what is the shared experience by Indigenous Australians across multiple generations. Okay, from the moment people decided that Australia was a nice place to live, there has been conflict between the Indigenous Australians that were already here and the invading forces. So Captain Cook was not the first person to land here, contrary to popular belief, but he was the first one to decide that landing here was worth something. And from that moment onwards, when people saw the Indigenous people with darker skin, they were immediately profiled as being less than, of being native. It took a really long time for people to actually recognise legally that Indigenous Australians were people. Before, I think, I want to say wasn't that long ago, 1920s, something like that, around the referendum. Sorry, I'm not a history teacher, I'm not good with numbers. But they were actually classified in the census as animals. They were Australian fauna, and they came under the Australian Fauna and Flora Act, which is the Australian Animal and Plant Act. They weren't considered humans. Okay, so for as long as we've had people invading, we've had people viewing Indigenous people as less than and trying to fix them, believing that something is broken. And that's where the stolen generation came from. And now that affected Ali Copy Ackerman and her family. And we're seeing in examples here how this racial profiling is affecting Jackson and his life. Oh, excuse me, getting a dry throat. Okay, so racial profiling is something that is shared by Indigenous Australians across multiple generations. Racial discrimination is a form of racially biased policing, has several harmful effects. So not only on the community that are racial or ethnic minorities, but on their people, on the ability of the police to perform their role. The community does not have confidence in the police. The community is far less likely to report crimes or participate in criminal investigations. We don't have time to go through. I wish we had some more time to go through some of the cases where this is obvious. If you want to do some research on your own, it's pretty easy. But when there's no trust between the community and the police officers that help that or work for that community, then nothing is going to go the way that it should, and police can't do their jobs the way that they should. And we see that in Jackson's mother when she says, "You shouldn't have hit him back," because she knows the police are going to target her son, not Ethan, who started this. Even if Jackson says to the police, "He called me a name," they're going to be like, "Well, you threw the first punch." And it's just like when we're at school, okay, always telling you guys don't get into physical fights because it's never going to end well. It's the same thing here. There's going to always be a he said, she said. And because Jackson is Indigenous and this is a racist community he lives in, and the police work on racial profiling, he's the one that's going to get into trouble, regardless of what Ethan did. So apart from impeding the police in their duties, it also means that vulnerable members of the community are made more vulnerable as they feel they do not have resources to protect their rights and personal safety. Racial bias policing causes communities to feel disengaged with the wider, Victorian community. The information I got was from Victoria, but it's Australia-wide. As a result of feeling surveilled and singled out for different treatment. When this occurs, police are not only failing to uphold the rights of some sections of the community, they're also contributing to the disengagement of groups on a broader society. So not all police are corrupt. I'm definitely not going to say that. I definitely think that there are many good cops out there and the police do an amazing job. I think just seeing how the police handled the last Sydney the protests that happened just the weekend before, on the 22nd, 21st of August, seeing how the police conducted themselves, how they protected the community, they did their job. I definitely think that it's important we support police in general. The problem comes from individuals, or where people aren't being held accountable. So in the story of the Boy from the Mish, Constable Rogers seems to be in charge of everything. He's the one that is always coming up against Jackson and his friends. He knows them on a first name basis. And so we know that he's a corrupt officer, that he's going to back the white kid, not the kid that actually needs protection in this case. And unfortunately, that's just how it goes a lot, especially in these far out there small communities where there's only 2 or 3 police officers that generally work on any case. And then we have here, our last activity that I want you guys to think about for the Boy from the Mish, sorry. We have this gif here of Zendaya with her parents, if you ever wondered what her parents look like. So Gary Losenberg has expressed how he wrote the book The Boy from the Mish because he could not find books that reflected his own story. If you remember at the very beginning when we read the author notes, it's like I couldn't find stories that were about me. So I wrote one. And he wrote one that's not just about an Indigenous boy learning his identity and falling in love for the first time, and the LGBTQ plus stuff that happens within the story. It's also about an Indigenous boy learning his identity through his Indigenous culture and how he is reflected within his own community. So there's a lot of identity notifications that go on in this story if you want to read the whole thing. So many authors have similar ideas when they have something to say that isn't already in the media. A lot of authors, when you ask them, what should I write? It's write what you know. Write the story you wish you could read. That's the most advice that authors will give. And that's because we all have a story that's worth sharing. Ali Cobby Eckermann does the same thing. She's taken her past, her story, her experiences, and put them into words to express how she feels. Okay, so she wrote poetry rather than books to express her life and how she fit into the world. This need to express themselves culturally stems from a deep set belief within Indigenous culture. So, like I said before, Indigenous culture is based on a tradition of storytelling and sharing yourself through words. And I think it's really important that we consider why we want to tell stories or read stories or take part of stories. When it comes down to anything really, like video games, books, movies, it's all about sharing stories. Our world is completely made up of how to share stories with other people, find people like us, share our own beliefs with other people, and it stems from that. So, our activity for this is okay, if you're going to write a poem or a narrative, what would you write about? Okay, in dot points, outline aspects of your own story that you feel are interesting and should be shared. Okay, so if I was going to write a story about my life, something I would focus on is the fact that I have a reading disability, yet I'm an English teacher. I think that's kind of funny and ironic. Some of the struggles I go through every day, you guys have no idea how many times I've already recorded this, trying to read those sections from The Boy From the Mish, and I still made mistakes. Um, I think that's a little bit interesting to some people. Like other people that have disabilities might not think that they can be a teacher or be someone in this line of work because they're the way they are just goes against that. Okay, some people might have an interesting backstory, like with their family. Unfortunately, mine's pretty boring. Both Aussie parents. It's as you can see in the GIF here, Zendaya is saying that she has roots in Africa and from Germany, and that she's proud of both of them, and that's part of who she is. So, if you were going to write a poem or a narrative, I just want like a couple of dot points, one or two dot points. Of what do you think your life is interesting? What in your life is interesting? What has happened to you that other people might want to read about because it also happened to them, and that story doesn't exist yet? And then our last activity here for book week, I wanted to make a nice, easy one for you. So you're just going to create your own escapism place. It can be for anything. It can be an ideal gaming room, a movie room, a study, a place where you go to write, a place where you go to sleep. Yeah, I just want you to go on Google and find an image that represents your dream space, and then tell me why you love it. Okay, so I found this one. It didn't take me that long. I'm not expecting you guys to Google forever. Okay, I love this space because I like to be cozy when I read. I normally read with, I have a blanket, my reading blanket. So I've got my reading blanket, I've got my book, I'm cozy. My kids know to leave me alone because I'm in my own little space. It's where I relax and de-stress, and I really love warm lighting. So like I have a lot of fake candles in my study or my place where I like to hang out. I've got fairy lights against the wall because that warm light is really relaxing to me. And finally, I really love this large window. I am not a fan of nature. I genuinely like architecture more. However, right now, because of COVID, I really miss going outside. So just being able to see this back garden would be enough for me at the moment. And I'm finding myself opening more and more windows just so I can see outside my house because of COVID. So yeah, I want you to find a picture and then tell me why you love it. And that's it. That's the end of lesson 3. That is it for week 7. I will see all of you guys next week, and I hope you're staying safe. Bye.